Hello, my name is Wendy Van Norden, and I'm a leader with the Sierra Club. This is the fourth of a series of videos in which I get to introduce you to the Galapagos Islands. In this video, I'd like to talk about conservation issues and how to visit the Galapagos. One environmental issue to the Galapagos is one that is important to many, many places around the world, and that is introduced species. Goats and pigs were introduced by whalers. They knew if they dropped off a couple goats and came back a year later, there would be lots of goats and plenty of barbecues. Unfortunately, the goats did well, but they overgrazed and they competed with the tortoises. Overgrazing causes erosion. So it was decided in 1995 that the goats and pigs should be removed. Now, on the smaller islands, that was quite easy because the hunters could go shoulder to shoulder and kill everyone in sight. However, Isabella Island, which is the largest of the Galapagos Islands, the one that looks a little bit like a seahorse, they needed to do something else. They had 140,000 goats and some very rough terrain. The way they got rid of the goats was to shoot them from helicopter. However, the goats got smart. About 95% of them were gone, but the other 5% were getting very wily and difficult to shoot. The whole thing would be for naught if you don't get the very last goat. So what they had to resort to was to use a Judas goat. That is, they would sterilize goats and put radio collars on them and then let them loose. Goats are very, very social critters. They're herd animals. So these goats would find the other goats, hang out with them, and along would come the hunters, killing all the goats that didn't have radio collars. That is how they managed to eradicate the goats on Isabella Island in 2009. What do you do with thousands of dead goats? Well, it turns out the best thing to do is also the easiest thing to do. Leave them there. Those goats had consumed all the vegetation which contained the nutrients that had been in the soil. So if you let the goats decompose into the soil, the nutrients will be returned. This was done on all of the islands, including Pinta Island. Here's Lonesome George. He was the last known Pinta Island tortoise. And it's not a surprise that George is male because the female tortoises were easier to remove by the sailors. He was relocated to Darwin Research Institute, where they tried to mate him with closely related tortoises, but none of the eggs were viable. Pinta Island was cleared of feral goats in 1990. The vegetation is growing back, but it's too late for George. He died in the year 2012 at the age of 100. If you really want to see George, he's still there at the Darwin Institute, but he's been stuffed. Tourism can be a problem for the environment, but the good news is the Galapagos National Park takes up 97% of the land in the Galapagos Islands, and all of the water surrounding the islands are part of a marine reserve. There are strict limits to how many people can step onto any island at any time, and all visitors have to be accompanied by an official national park guide. The bad news is you add people, you get an increase of trash and plastic, and shame on us. We can all use reusable bottles and reusable grocery bags at home. We should be using that when we travel as well. Islands always have a limited amount of water, and as more people come to the islands, more water gets used. Tourists can track seeds from one island to the next, and that's one of the reasons they will be accompanied by rangers who will help tourists to remove the seeds before they step onto a new island. There's also the problematic use of sunscreens. Now, I'm sure all of us use sunscreens to prevent skin cancer, but most sunscreens contain oxybenzone and other chemicals. These are chemical reactions that block the UV light. Unfortunately, oxybenzone damages coral and interferes with fish reproduction. It's also an allergen, so you really don't want it on a child. It can even be found in human breast milk, where it might be disrupting hormonal systems. It has been banned in Hawaii and probably should be banned throughout the world. There are plenty of safe options. They contain either zinc oxide, titanium oxide, or a combination of the two minerals. They produce a physical barrier to the UV light. They're much better for sensitive skin. They do tend to make your face look a little white, but get over it. There are lots and lots of good choices out there. So all you have to do is look, and you'll find plenty of reef-safe sunscreen. Best not to use sprays. Notice that even Coppertone got in the game by producing a reef-safe sunscreen. How do you get to the Galapagos? Well, you first have to fly to Ecuador, either to Quito or Guayaquil. When you get there, you'll be paying a $100 park entrance fee, which is actually not a bad deal. Notice that I said dollar. Ecuador uses American dollars as their currency. Then you can choose among cruises. You could take a large cruise like the Silver Seas. This is the largest boat that goes to the Galapagos, and it's a lovely, luxurious cruise ship. Or you can take one of the smaller cruises. There are a number of those available. They will take about 16 passengers, which is just the right amount to go onto any of the islands with a park ranger who will be on the ship with you. You can easily visit more of the islands by being on a cruise, since the ships will go from one island to the next in the middle of the night. There are some cruises specialized for diving on Wolf and Darwin Islands. However, the smaller the boat, the rougher the journey, believe me. Another way to do it is to have a land-based trip. Santa Cruz, Isabela, San Cristobal, and Fernandina are all inhabited with small towns that have hotels. One nice thing about a land-based trip is that you get to interact with and support local communities. And it's easy to get short boat rides to the smaller islands or even flights between the larger islands. The logistics are much more difficult to figure out. If you're the kind of traveler who likes to just show up and do everything off the cuff, please don't do this in the Galapagos. You'll have a very difficult time. Here's the shameless plug. The Sierra Club runs trips to the Galapagos, and our trips are land-based trips. Here I am with my enchanted Galapagos trip, and here is Aurora with her trip to the Galapagos Islands and Machu Picchu, and Patrick Tierney with his islands that includes Quito. In the future, there will be other trips and other leaders. To find them, all you have to do is look up Sierra Club outings. However you choose to go to the Galapagos, I just suggest that you go. It is one of the most unique places on Earth. I hope that this video has put the Galapagos Island a little higher on your bucket list, and you'll consider going to the Galapagos or going back to the Galapagos. Thank you.